done it in Bengal, which is supposedly one of the most difficult places to do business in, according to many. So I think we really need to pay close attention to his journey and his successes. So Ravi, tell us a little bit about, and let's start with what you did in Bengal. Let's jump into the deep end.
Thank you, Gunjan. Since you asked me to jump straight into Bengal, as you all know, or those who are aware of India, West Bengal is where Calcutta is, where Kolkata is, and that's where the East India Company came in, and then from there India got to be ruled by the British for more than 200 years. And it's got its own amazing history, very Anglo-Saxon, very educated, very cultured. And the British used it as their base to grow till they shifted their capital to New Delhi. And then the Lutyens' Delhi was built, and all of that. Last 50 years of West Bengal didn't see any growth at all, primarily because we had a communist government there, which was running the show as the Communist Party of India. And then 15 years ago, even that lost its power, and then came the Trinamool Congress, which people hoped would bring in a lot of development. Unfortunately, nothing of that happened. We happened to be there because of the National Highway Network the government of India was building, and we formed an American consortium to go and bid on some of the projects there. And this included American engineering companies, and I was the CEO of Inkerhoff, which was one of the oldest and largest engineering companies in the US. And that relates back to Calcutta to Delhi, because more than 20 years ago, the Chief Minister of New Delhi came to LA, and we hosted him here because we were project managers for the LA Metro, the very first line. And we promised the Delhi government that we'll bring all the tunneling technology back to India. So that's how we went to India in the late 90s, and we dug up the first tunnel below the Indian Parliament. And a lot of people were scared, that will the Indian Parliament collapse and settle down into that tunnel? And we brought in the very first tunnel boring machine. So that was then, the late 90s, and our journey took us from New Delhi Metro. We brought in more than 100 American engineers to Delhi. People today don't realize that, because very quickly India indigenized and the engineers learned what they were supposed to do. So we did tunneling, we did bridges, we did airports. We were the program managers, and they were all engineers for the Delhi airport as well. And so from director, engineer, staff number one, for me, we became more than 1,000 engineers. So it was quite an amazing thing to recruit that many engineers and station them in Delhi. We also became project managers for Bangalore Metro and also in Mumbai Metro. But the Calcutta one was very interesting because we were supposed to raise the entire capital on our own. And we bid on it very aggressively. And what Marv said about local partners, we at that time partnered with a local construction company which not many people had to work with overseas, called Larsen & Toubro, L&T. And you fast forward 20 years later, at that time they didn't know what build, operate, transfer, or equity and debt financing is. And our investors here included Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, which I had brought in from New York to partner with us on the funding side. So today L&T is worth like $25 billion of turnover. It's India's largest conglomerate. They have left bridges behind. They are now building India's tanks and aircrafts and missiles. So that's the growth of some of the Indian giants in India now. So in Calcutta, we survived primarily because we were dealing primarily with the Delhi government, the central government. Had it been the state government, we would have been pretty much wiped out of business because of all the populist measures and so on. And now we are really energized because the central government and the state government will be aligned. BJP, Mr. Modi and his team have won West Bengal elections with a landslide victory for the first time. So I'm flying back in September for a meeting with the Chief Minister there. And our current investors include not only the old Morgan Stanley Infrastructure Fund, but we now have a very large private equity fund called Actis, which used to be London-based, but now they have been acquired by General Atlantic, which is a $100 billion private equity group based in New York. So these guys are very big in renewable energy in India. They do power plants, hydro, thermal was the early stage, but now they're into very big solar and wind. So we are now moving into the multimodal and the transportation side, which is putting freight rail and also toll roads, focusing on trucks, bringing them into logistics hubs. So I heard one of the members here is from the DHL side. So yeah, we are putting some of the large multimodal logistics parks in West Bengal as well, and also in and around Delhi, and also in my home state of UP. So that's our focus.
So can you explain to people what a multimodal logistics park is? Some may not quite know what that means.
Sure. So just about when COVID came in and the whole world came to a standstill, India launched its multimodal logistics policy, and in Hindi it's called Gati Shakti, and Prime Minister Modi himself took very keen interest, and it's under his control, and also the Honorable Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal, he's in charge of this industry, 14 different departments and ministries. And what is happening is, for the first time in India, you are integrating all the modes of transportation in a holistic manner. So you have surface transport, which is both the road and rail transport. You have ports and you have airports. And you also now connect them to the logistics hubs, which are the industrial parks that are coming in. Because from 15 days, which was an average time like 15 years ago, 10 years ago, for goods to reach the port from its point of manufacturing or coming into the country from the hinterland, now it's down to 3 to 4 days. And the throughput in a port is now down to 12 to 18 hours. So yeah, we work closely with Port of Singapore, we work closely with also the other ports, including ports in Long Beach, on some of this. Right now we are setting up a new institute called Mobility Global Institute, under our group's host leadership. And what we're doing here is we're talking about not just brick and mortar, but also AI and ML. So we've partnered with Google and a few other entities where we are not developing the large language models, but we are bringing in some of these models and training them on the Indian transport data. And even, for example, on the bridge which we own and operate in West Bengal, the one which we talked about. By the way, that bridge still is India's oldest and largest privately financed toll bridge. So it's about 6 kilometers long across the river Ganges. The earlier bridge took 20 years to build, and on this one, with our American technology and project management and L&T, the Indian contractor, we built the entire bridge 6 kilometers long. Everything was done in 36 months. And we won 2 American Bridge Engineering Awards, which were the first such awards, and we built 2 new world records in that. So what we're doing in this AI ML aspects of the data is we are training these large language models on the logistics aspects of how much does a truck carry. A lot of these trucks are going back empty when they're putting on the stuff into the cities. So how can we optimize the usage of these trucks? The dedicated freight corridors of India are happening. So how can the rail and the road freight movements be integrated together? And we're getting a lot of support in this from the various ministries. 10 years ago, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, who is the transport minister, he came here and we hosted him in Orange County as well. So you fast forward this 10 years, it's amazing the amount of work that is being done in the rail and the road infrastructure. The dedicated freight corridors now have twin tracks going with double-decker container movements. So really things are moving. China is our role model in terms of the efficiency of the movement of logistics and the freight goods. But I think with the use of AI and ML, we will optimize some of these logistics jams that are happening. So the multimodal logistics parks really will streamline all the modes of transportation and bring them all together in these integrated logistics parks. And the government has set up a very nice policy. They will provide the land through the highway authority or the rail authority, and you can set up a 40-year lease or a 60-year lease. And it's on a revenue share so that the upfront high cost of land is not there. So we are bringing in some of the largest foreign direct investment from US into these logistics parks. And I think by the end of this year, we will be able to launch our very first one in just north of our bridge in Dampali, if you're familiar with Calcutta. So that's where the freight corridor from Delhi to Calcutta is ending. And so this will be about 100 acres of logistics with the rail and the road and the airport. And the port is still further down, but we will make sure all the container freights and the freight is moved in a very timely fashion.
So how soon do you think the infrastructure in India for logistics will be comparable to China?
That's a tough one. I think the ambassador said some of that, in terms of being a democracy. Land is always very tough as an issue, and India has passed some very groundbreaking rules and laws in terms of eminent domain. So just like in the US, if you have a critical infrastructure, the land can get acquired, once you define the alignment of the project. And in that case, the landowners have to compulsorily exit. Only issue is what is the market value of your land, and then you'll exit. Still, it's a long process. In China, they give you 30 days to exit that land, otherwise something else will happen, and you might disappear from that whole region in terms of the locality. But land has now become quite feasible in terms of the public-private partnerships, and government acquires these land parcels and then partners with the private sector. We as private sector don't want to get into the land acquisition process, so we partner once the land has been acquired by the government. And to answer your question about China, we have our own advantages and disadvantages in terms of the speed of progress and execution. But I think we have still a ways to go in terms of being comparable to China. If you look at China in terms of the high-speed rail network, we are still struggling with our very first high-speed rail in California. We were involved initially as PB in that, and now, as you know, it's running from Bakersfield to Fresno. I don't know when it will ever connect Los Angeles to San Francisco. So speed of completion will be an issue. But right now, India is catching up. The high-speed rail between Delhi and Mumbai via Ahmedabad is almost 50% done. And had it been that Maharashtra also had the same government, that would be much faster. So maybe in the next 10 years, you will see even much more drastic changes. But this current Modi government, they mean business in infrastructure. They set up task forces, they do project monitoring, and world-class infrastructure is being built. If you see the airports we manage in Delhi, today it's handling more than 75 million passengers per year. And in the medium-sized category, Delhi is now one of the best airports. So despite the fog and smog, which we were talking about.
Yeah, and now there's a second international airport in Delhi, Jewar, Bagla. It opened just recently. The Indian government also has other massive plans. Some of you might know that India owns the Andaman and Nicobar Islands in the Bay of Bengal. And the southernmost of those islands is actually very close to the Strait of Malacca. We are hearing about the Strait of Hormuz, but the Strait of Malacca is a 17-mile passage south of Singapore, where about 20% of the world's trade goes through. And India's Great Nicobar Island is sometimes compared to a stationary aircraft carrier sitting right there. The government hadn't done much, but now they are going to build a massive port, a defense plus civilian port, deep water port right there. It's a huge project and it's being fast-tracked. So the US, of course, is very keenly interested in collaborating with India on that port, because it's not just a matter of trade, it's a matter of strategic control in case there is a conflict that involves a certain other large country in Asia, which I will not name. So the strategic alignment between the two countries is very strong, and you'll see a lot of development in terms of logistics on that port. There's another port north of Mumbai that is being built, right? Are you involved in Vadhavan at all? No. Okay. So yeah, there's massive development happening in terms of infrastructure, and you've been a pioneer in making that happen at a very, very early stage. Does anybody have any questions for Ravi? Dr. Shukla.
So, I don't think I need a mic. I teach all day. So basically, I've had friends of mine who have worked on Caltrans projects and highway in the state of New Mexico. And they have designed like a 100-year sort of warranty on the roads and the construction and the durability. And they actually withhold like 10% of the project funding to verify that the professional engineer has to personally be liable if it doesn't last. What's the sort of warranty on bridges or the infrastructure work in India? What are their expectations of quality and so on?
Excellent. So there are two aspects to it. One is the design side of it. So if I put my old engineering hat, not the finance hat, typically any of the bridges have a design life of 100 years. So you design, especially these major crossings across rivers and all of that, typically for 100 years. So that's what major facility should last. Like this record-setting bridge in Calcutta is a 100-year design life. And we just completed 18 years of operations. And we manage and own and operate, we collect the toll and everything else. And so far everything has gone good. But when we hire as an investor the contractors to build it for us, like in this case India's largest company was our 1/3 equity partner, L&T, and also they were our contractor. So we brought into India for the first time international types of contracts, like it's called FIDIC-based contracts. So in this FIDIC-based contract, they have to guarantee the maximum price, they have to execute on that quality with safety, and we penalize them for everything that they violate. But the defects liability period is not 100 years or whatever you were saying about Caltrans here. And I did do a lot of projects here with Caltrans when I was running the PB arm or other companies. I think it's typically 5 to 6 years. Post-construction is the defects liability period in which the contractor is, taking some responsibility, and you can withhold what is called retention money, 5-10% of their contract, in case there's any major defect or any problem happens. But I don't think you can hold money beyond that. And even in Caltrans, I don't think any contractor would like to tie up 10-20% of their fees for more than that initial period. So, and right now in India, back in the early days, the level of the quality of work was not really up to even acceptable standard. But today, what we see is really very different. Not many American construction companies are there. People like us, we were more of program managers, engineers, construction managers, and that's where we built up this multi-thousand people. The two companies I took, one was PB, the other was AECOM. And AECOM was based in LA, and I worked for more than a year convincing our board here in LA to go to India. And then we built it up, and we became 4,000 engineers in India. And at any given time, AECOM handles more than $10 billion of capital projects in India. So AECOM does not do any at-risk construction in India, but it will supervise the work of the Indian contractors, right from planning, engineering, program management, procurement, and then even asset management during the operation stage. And that's very important for India, because if you rush into projects and then you build some shoddy quality things, you will still see, bridges, especially when they fall into the river, it looks like it gives very poor picture, especially if it's an under construction bridge. Luckily nobody gets killed, there's no traffic. And a few of these bridges fell down in the last few years over there. So I think now the government is learning its lessons, and they're bringing best industry practices in tunneling, bridges, and so on.
Great, thank you.
I think there was another question. Yes, over there, I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This has been super informative. I'm curious, as you look at your multimodal projects and things going forward, how, in terms of like building in access to energy, or are there eVTOL destinations, or are those under consideration as you build those out?
That's an excellent point. eVTOLs are actually scary because from a toll perspective, we still have toll plazas and toll booths, and if these vehicles are flying up, one of my guys was talking about, what will happen, who will pay the toll, because then there is no toll on the eVTOLs. So there is no provision yet on the flying electric vehicles. There's nothing like that yet. And
I'm just saying, like, future-proofing, just
yeah,
when
so,
it does happen.
Yeah, so absolutely, a lot of thought process is going in now, and that's where in our Mobility Global Institute we are trying to do this part as a think tank, and working with the IITs, and as we were talking about the IITs. So we are collaborating with two of the IITs on some of this. The renewable energy part of it is very easily done. So almost all multimodal logistics parks, the warehouses, and even the toll plazas or any of the freight stations, all will be solar powered, and they will have to be energy sufficient on their own. So we're putting
the microgrids.
yeah, so we'll be putting solar panels there and put microgrid there to put all the electricity from there. But autonomous vehicles and eVTOLs are two things which we haven't yet gotten to that point yet, where we are able to resolve how this will happen in terms of infrastructure and who will fund it, and then how will it integrate into the existing infrastructure. As it is, we are having a big issue just with when we built up toll bridge in Calcutta, I was talking about, the traffic was at like 10,000 vehicles per day. Today it's 50,000 vehicles per day. And in the next 10 years, it will probably cross 120,000 vehicles. The entire toll plaza was manual. Every booth had people sitting in there. Now every fourth booth has a person, and that person, he or she, not collecting toll. It's almost like our Orange County toll road, which is where we began our business here. All the OC toll roads here were part of the program management team that we had here. So the 73 toll road, the 241, and so on. So all the new toll plazas in India, 98 to 99% is all through FASTag. So it's all RFID. You put the sticker on your car, and then you prepay. It's not still very good in terms of post payment, so we are getting slowly over there where Indians will be putting their RuPay or credit card onto those, FASTag, and then we can collect. But that has really saved so much time and also leakage. Every day we have 8-hour shifts, and we exactly know how many vehicles went through each bridge, how much money was collected, and it all goes through a central clearinghouse in Bombay, one of the top banks. It's really amazing how much digitization and centralization has happened all over India in terms of the digital world. So I'm sure this eVTOL and the autonomous vehicle part of it happen. I'm more worried about charging stations right now. We don't have any over there.
Yeah, as you build out, right, planning for that kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One last question, I think. So,
We have been seeing, a lot of bridges and other things coming in metropolitan cities and all that sort of thing. But how challenging it is to have bridges to be built when near the borders like India-China border, India-Pakistan border, India-Nepal border. They are all very critical and very difficult terrains are there. So how challenging and how does it work? Does a defense do the job, or is it private companies who are taking up the job? Because they're very challenging and difficult terrains are there.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know more about it if you can.
Sure. So broadly, bulk of the work at all the borders, and India does have quite a bit of borders everywhere. And although Gunjan wasn't taking the name earlier, he asked me how soon we become like China's infrastructure. But later we didn't name China. So yeah, we have like almost 3,000 kilometers of border with China, both in the Akshay Chin in Jammu and Kashmir, and then again in Arunachal Pradesh. So mostly all border sensitive infrastructure is built by border roads, which is under the Indian government, under the defense. So they handle all the infrastructure building. Like during the first years of COVID, we had some tussle with China at the border there, so the Galwan place. All the infrastructure investment that happened is funded directly by the government and built by the government entities. So they have their own border roads.
Private companies?
No, border roads is totally government owned. Yeah, defense owned. If you move slightly away from there, then that's where the private sector comes in. So there are some very large projects. One or two of them actually been completed. It's a very big tunnel leading towards Leh Ladakh, and that is completely built by private sector. And obviously the agency at the top is National Highway Authority of India, but the private contractors have built it, and then it will be a toll facility. So the private entity will own it and operate it and collect the toll for 30 years or 20 years and then return it back to the government. But yeah, exactly near the borders in Pakistan, China or Bangladesh and all, the private sector is off limits. It's mostly border roads which does all of that. Right now, even fencing is a very big issue. We talked of fencing.
Bangladesh.
So the Bangladesh, now that the Modi government is in West Bengal, there's a huge fencing program underway on the Indian-Bangladesh border. And the roads were already there, and there's a huge amount of trade going on between India and Bangladesh. But right now, again, the geopolitical issues have caused a bunch of problems there.
But these people, defense has so much capability to do such risky jobs. They are very challenging and risky jobs.
Yeah.
For defense,
They can hire technology consultants and all of that, but the execution with the defense.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Verma. Wonderful, wonderful presentation.